Coverage was anchored by Hall of Fame broadcaster Lee Harris that morning. Lee is now the Director of Integrated Operations here at NewsNation, joins us from our headquarters in Chicago. I want to play a clip right off the bat, Lee, from that morning, just minutes after the first plane hit the World Trade Center. It was 23 years ago today, 8:50 a.m. on 1010 Wins. Listen.
Breaking news now on 1010 Wins. This just into our newsroom. A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. Let's get this live update from 1010 Wins correspondent Joan Fleischer. Joan, what do you see?
Well, I'm standing on the top of my roof, and I'm looking at the World Trade Center, and there's a huge hole in it, and there's a fire in the building right now. Huge smoke pouring out of it.
When that started the coverage, 23 years later, Lee, what do you most remember?
Well, interestingly, Joan Fleischer was not a correspondent. She worked in our sales department, but she provided some of the best coverage. She had a balcony overlooking the site, and she was live with us when the first tower went down. And unlike a correspondent, she had a raw human reaction to it. She screamed. A reporter would have kept it under wraps a little bit, trying to be professional, but she conveyed the true horror of the day, and in a way that a reporter could not. And it was the most ordinary day. It started out boring. We had a primary election that we knew the outcome of. Turned out to be very different in the end. And all of a sudden, this first report was a small plane hit the World Trade Center. That would have been big news in and of itself. And I was on the air, and I saw the second plane hit, and I took a chance. I said, we are under a terrorist attack. And I was pretty convinced this is what happened. There was no other plausible explanation for two planes on a crystal clear day hitting the towers in succession like that. And I figured if I was somehow wrong, nobody would remember. But I knew I wasn't wrong.
No, the odds of two were so low. But back then, you're right about the first plane. Many people thought it was something else, just a small plane. Many people in the buildings that were close by stayed at their desks and didn't leave. And then it was the second plane we all knew. What do you think all these years later, 23 years later? I'm going to play a clip from my own coverage at that time. This is the day after September 11th. On September 12th, I was on the radio as well at Bloomberg Radio, WBBR Radio here in New York. They took a group of us down there, the first group of reporters, to go back to the site and see the wreckage. And when I was thinking about it this morning, I was thinking about the air quality then and the stories now of so many people for years who've gotten sick and have died from 9/11 related to illnesses. When you hear this clip, you'll notice it's muffled because I was actually wearing a mask because the quality of the air was so poor. Let's listen.
We're now looking at what was Tower 2. I tell you, until you see this, it's almost indescribable. There's about 10 stories standing as it goes diagonally up from the left to a peak at the top, which is about 15 stories high. And that is all that remains of Tower 2. Beside that, behind that, there is a huge pile of rubble, about 70, 80 feet in the air. And if anybody is under that, it's beyond me as to how they are surviving.
It's kind of eerie to see that matched with pictures today, as we did on that screen. But I also remember you could feel it. You still feel it if you remember in your chest what the air was like down there, and that's still a big story.
And there was so much bad information about the quality of the air and how it was. They're not safe to breathe within the realm of possibility of breathing, and I looked at it. I couldn't see how that could possibly be so, just from the look of it and from the ability to breathe down there. And, of course, now, 20 years later, it's still killing people.
We put that headline up as we wrap from Axios. They had Kelly Meyer mentioned this earlier, but you have more people, there it is, more FDNY members dying from 9/11 related illnesses than were killed in the attack. Remember, 343 firefighters died that day. Lee Harris, one of the broadcasting greats of New York City history, and that's how many people in this town found out such important information that day. Thanks. We'll see you when you get back to New York, okay?